Yeah. Cool. Hi everyone. Just a quick intro. Yeah, my name's Adam. I'm the head of paid media here at Flaunt Digital. I've been here for just over a year, and I've been in the industry for almost 9 years now, working across agencies and also with Google, providing paid media expertise and support. So throughout my time in the industry, I've had the opportunity to work with a range of businesses, from local to national to international, across a vast range of different industries. So throughout my near decade working in digital marketing, I think it's fair to say that things haven't stood still for very long. It's very fast moving, which is why it's so important to always be looking at developments within the industry and making sure that we're analysing and learning so as not to be left behind. So over the next few slides, I'm just going to be delving into where I believe the paid social media industry currently is, how it should be viewed, and just give some insights on how I believe advertisers can be best placed to leverage it in its current state. So just to quickly touch on the current climate. So we all know what's happened over the last 2 years, 2 to 3 years, with the pandemic. We're not going to dwell on that, but it's important to just take stock of the fact that it's caused quite a major shift over that time period. We've seen more and more businesses rely on, or in some cases turn to for the first time, digital and online advertising. So that obviously impacts competition within the marketplace. As many of us who work in the industry will have seen, it's becoming increasingly saturated. That's something that we'll touch on a little bit later in terms of competition, but just a little snippet on that. So in 2021, the World Advertising Research Centre described what was a meteoric rise in the value of the advertising market, stating that it had grown year on year by almost 25%. So that just goes to show, the levels of increased competition that you're going to be up against. We're now also enduring, a cost of living crisis as well. So in terms of the landscape, it's been a relatively tumultuous 2 to 3 year period now, but that all plays a part in, the current state of the market today. So with that in mind, I'm just going to get into a few key elements of how to make a success of your social media advertising. So just to start off a little bit on what we're going to cover. So obviously with any form of advertising, there are a large number of different factors that are going to contribute towards success. And by no means are we going to have enough time within the next 20 minutes to exhaustively cover every single element of what makes for a successful paid advertising campaign. But what we will try and do is just sum up a couple of key areas. So touching on audiences and how to leverage them, looking at platforms and the diversification out there that you can branch out into, and making sure that you're relevant across those platforms. How to approach strategy and the importance of strategy, and understanding where your advertising sits within your strategy. Understanding your funnel, getting your creative right, and just briefly touching on testing as well. So just to set the scene, the way that people are using social media is changing, and it has done since its inception. There's obviously now different expectations as to what social media will deliver than we've been used to in the past, and as a result, strategy and approach is more important than ever. So the days are gone where you might have been able to just open up business managers or ads managers across a range of different social media platforms and roll out a blanket one-size-fits-all approach to the different platforms. We're going to touch on that much more in detail later. But in order to advertise now, and in order to advertise well, there's a pressure on brands to abandon broad campaigns and make sure that you're creating content for each individual platform and each individual audience within it. It's more important than ever to strategize how you're going to leverage specific social platforms in order for you to be able to generate the best possible results. So to touch on behavior and how that impacts it, for many years now, social media has been sort of a go-to platform to authentically get in front of shoppers. However, we're now seeing it quite commonly noted that generations of shoppers are increasingly not wanting to be advertised to. And that's something that's cropping up more and more, especially over recent times. A lot of people will be aware, are more aware of protecting their own privacy. And that's something that's been showcased over the last couple of years. So what happened relatively recently with, Apple rolling out a new iOS update. If you're an Apple user, you'll have no doubt been through or been served with push notifications when you go into apps, where it's asking you if you want to be tracked across apps, to be able to deliver more customized and personalized advertising. As a result of that, when it first rolled out, sort of uptake figures on a global level were incredibly low. Some of the figures that were banded around were sort of between 20-25%. So people are obviously taking a much tighter grasp of their own privacy and making sure that they're not giving their data away quite as easily as they once were. So what that's just meant is that the landscape of social media advertising is becoming more nuanced. So where previously, like I say, you might have been able to drive strong results through rolling out a bit of like set and forget ad creative across some audiences that have historically worked well for you, that's becoming increasingly less effective. So I'm not saying that was commonplace or best practice, but those days are gone where you could maybe get away with that and expect to be able to roll out something that was just easily put together, sort of not a lot of thought gone behind it, and you'd maybe expect to see decent results. So to get the best results out of your paid social now, it's getting increasingly costly, and it's getting increasingly competitive. So you need to be smarter about the way you go about things. So how do you do that? So more and more thought just needs to be put into understanding both the users that you're targeting and also the platforms that you're looking to utilize. Ad experience that you're delivering, the ad experience that you're delivering has to become endemic to the platform. Users are looking more and more for ads to be unobstructed parts of their social media experience. So that's got to be a consideration now for advertisers. As a result, advertisers are having to be more mindful of how they appear on each platform. The onus is on the advertiser very much to give users a more seamless experience across platforms that you're advertising on, as opposed to, attempting to shove products and services down a user's throat. So in a world that's becoming much more averse to being tracked and advertised to, there's gains to be had by trying to integrate yourself more to the platform. So whether that's through using more user-generated content snippets or the use of tagging onto relevant trends, it's got to align with your objectives. Obviously, we're not saying that this is the right content for a user that you've worked through your purchasing funnel right to the bottom, and then you're not going to hit them with something that's a prospecting ad that's user-generated content. But yeah, there are certain parts of that purchasing funnel which we'll delve into in more detail later, where some of those tactics might be a little bit more in fitting with the audiences that we're trying to get in front of. And that's something that some platforms are starting to see too. So I think it was as recent as maybe last week or potentially this week, TikTok announced a new brand admission ad product, which is a clear shift towards this. So these ad types are going to allow content creators to connect with brands and possibly receive rewards for some of the videos that they're putting together. Advertisers are going to be able to crowdsource content from those creators and turn some of the top performing videos into ads. Advertisers can launch branded campaigns that encourage creators to take part in them. They can develop a brief and release it to that creator community as part of this new ad type. So it's just encouraging them to participate in what's essentially an advertising campaign, but it's using those influencers to do so. And it's just blurring that line a little bit more between content and advertising. So TikTok's obviously placing importance on that. In recent times, we see more and more of that anyway across things like Instagram. You get it quite a bit on Twitter, where you get a brand that's pushing maybe a promoted tweet or a piece of content across Instagram, where it's been pulled together by an influencer and they're trying to leverage that with some of their paid budget. But yeah, that's obviously a way that things are going at the moment. So just to touch on some of those platforms. So, you know, the social media world has been continually evolving now since its inception. We're in a very different place right now to where we were just a few years ago, and in a very, very different place to where we were maybe 5-10 years ago as well. So something like TikTok wouldn't have been around 10 years ago, but new platforms have emerged like that. It's hit 1 billion global users quicker than any other social platform in history. You know, over the past couple of years, things like streaming have enjoyed a huge boom as a result of, you know, the global climate and the situation that we've been in, meaning platforms like Twitch have become more and more popular. Google is doing everything it can to integrate more of its what perhaps we're seeing as softer placements, like your display and your video on YouTube placements into campaigns, through pushing advertisers to use Performance Max, which are integrating some of those, you know, display and video placements alongside or within the same campaign as some of your shopping activity. So I mean, we could sit here and go on for the rest of the 20 minutes about the development of social media and the landscape and how that's changed. But the point I'm trying to make here is that there's so many different opportunities to explore when it comes to paid advertising, that it's become more and more crucial that your strategy is based around an unbeatable knowledge of your own audience. And as a result, you're able to get really granular with what you want to do as part of your paid advertising. In doing that, you're able to, you know, have a better understanding of what's going to resonate with those audiences and what platforms are the best fit to leverage those audiences as well, in order to grab their attention. So in essence, it's basically saying that, you know, when we see paid social somewhere, it doesn't just mean Facebook anymore. There's lots of different areas that you can fit into your strategy there. And that brings us on to delving a little bit further into strategy. So as we've just discussed there, you know, it's crucial to understand your different audiences and what the goal is in terms of how you're going to reach them. So if you're looking to get in front of new users to build brand awareness, there are platforms where you can do that in a better way than if you were looking to, you know, push a hard sell, or if you were, you know, tasked with hitting a certain ROAS KPI across certain activity. Each passing generation, shoppers are getting smarter as well. So there are audience groups now out there that have grown up with social media as a constant aspect of their adult lives now. They're used to it, and, you know, they're being more and more particular about how and where they interact with their brands and how they select their brands as well. So the challenge really is for advertisers to make sure that they're thinking about that and strategizing in the full context of the user journey. So just going back to that last slide, showing the options available to us as advertisers, our job now is not only to know and understand the different social media platforms, but to know how to best interact with your audience on those platforms. So we touched on how TikTok is integrating within, you know, existing content there, but there's another one that allows us to do that quite well, is a platform like Pinterest. So as a platform that's used mainly for inspiration, it's quite an early touch point for the consumer. So as a result, you don't want your advert to, you know, stick out like a sore thumb on there. You're much more likely to see success on a platform like that at the upper stage of the funnel if you're pushing stuff like high quality imagery that's aspirational and in line with the other images that are being served natively on the platform when people are doing things like mood boarding. So if someone's decorating their home, for example, we ideally want to, you know, pass off the ad as being a native part of the platform, like an organic post was on there, especially if these users haven't interacted with your brand before. You want the ad to fit in, you want it to be aspirational enough that you can catch the user's attention and for them to take note of the brand and the product. What's not going to see results if people are looking to mood board for a room is, you know, some big promotional ad, because it's quite clearly an ad and people aren't going to, you know, explore it and click on it and delve into what the product is. So we want things to fit in there and be of high enough quality that it you know, not fools the user, but it doesn't look out of place. So you don't want to be pushing a hard sell on a platform like that when it's prospecting, it's early consideration. But you might take a bit less subtle approach if you're a retailer that's pushing products that, you know, if a user's already shown interest in your product recently, using something like a Facebook dynamic product ad with a discount messaging and pulling in alongside that as part of a carousel other similar products, that's where you'd maybe just do something a little bit more of a hard sell, you know, to get people over the line when they've already expressed an interest. It's unrealistic nowadays to be able to set, you know, a blanket KPI across all forms of paid advertising. For upper funnel activity, it's unrealistic to be able to set KPIs that are based on last touch conversions or ROAS, and expect them to drive the same kind of performance as you might do from your Google paid search or your Google shopping activity. So from a sales and conversion perspective, it can be difficult to justify those campaigns and those channels because they're playing a different role higher up in the funnel. So you've got to go, you know, into the launch of that activity with clear expectations as to where it sits within the funnel, so that you can judge them based on their actual objective. We can prove their impact by looking at other things, you know, other softer performance metrics, making sure that, you know, the engagement rates are high, people are showing interest, and also maybe looking at analysing overall website performance data as well, to see how that activity has maybe had a bit of a halo or a waterfall effect on some of your other channels, where they might have seen a boost as a result of that activity being live. So the main takeaway here is just that there needs to be a shift away from short-sighted and quite often siloed strategy when it comes to paid media. You've got to plan for that bigger picture over the longer term, especially in a climate over the past couple of years where the pandemic's created additional pressure on businesses. It's almost accentuated that sort of need for instant gratification with some channels, but it's important to just keep the bigger picture in mind, because if you top off the top of your funnel, you've got much less coming into the bottom of your funnel. So on to creative, and then the tone of that creative. So we've touched on how there is a different expectation from audiences based on what platform they're using. So it's more important than ever that creative is being considered alongside that. If audiences are reluctant to be advertised to, what can we do to make sure that we're not only creating ads that best integrate with the platform that they're being shown on, but also making sure that they integrate with the placement within that platform as well. So take Instagram as an example here. We know that there's multiple different placements within Instagram where ads can be served. The above three examples there are from my own Instagram yesterday. So, and I think they emphasize the point that I'm trying to make quite well here, in that on the right-hand side there, we can see that the timeline ad is much more in your face about, you know, pushing a product with a promotion. The real ad, even though you can't tell because I've screenshot it, but that's a video. Much softer sell in the form of, you know, the content of it. It's got some nice slick transitions there. It's got some nice product shots. It's not pushing for a hard sell, and it's a brand that I'm not aware of. So it's trying to bring the brand into my consciousness via a much more upper funnel brand consideration ad. And then the story placement in the middle, static ad using, you know, an industry influencer there, or industry star that closely matches with my interests. So they'll know how to catch my eye there. So when it comes to capturing attention, these ads have all been carefully selected to match the different placements that they're going to be serving on. So within the timeline ad there, the goal there is obviously to try and stop the user from scrolling, because we've got a big, bold 50% off offer. It's from a brand that we're aware of in Gillette. I maybe don't fit quite into the right audience there, given that I clearly don't often shave. But I mean, I've obviously fallen into part of an audience there that they think will work. On the left-hand side there, given the nature of reels, they're usually short videos. The user's probably more open to allowing the clip to play out a little bit, just because when you're flicking through your reels, you give it a couple of seconds leeway to understand what the video is going to be about and if you're going to want to watch it. So that you're much more open to allowing that clip to play, which is perfect for a more upper funnel brand awareness piece of creative, because you're more likely to give it that chance to catch your attention. And then the story placement in the middle, it's using a five-time CrossFit Games champion in the image there, so people within that audience should recognize him. It should grab their attention, and it's using a softer sell with offering a 14-day free trial. And then just to touch on how we know what's going to work well in each placement, and it just comes down to testing. It comes down to using your common sense in parts, but then once you've got your strategy mapped out, it's a relatively obvious point to all of us in here, but in a world where so much has changed over the last few years, testing is more important than ever. Analyzing performance based on old, maybe year on year or chunks of data from a while ago, it's no longer accurate. We've had periods of the last 2 years where people have had huge amounts of disposable income because they've literally not left the house for months at a time. We're now in the middle of a cost of living crisis, so that's skewing things as well. So, now more than ever, we need to be ensuring that we're testing our creative types and variants to understand what resonates best with our audiences. And, we can't rest on our laurels and assume that the creative that's worked well in the past is still going to work well now, because user behavior has changed so much, and, the landscape of the world has changed so much that we need to be generating fresh data sets to analyze performance on an ongoing basis. And then finally, just to touch on audiences, I know we're running a little bit short on time now, but for first-party audience, data is more important than ever, and it's going to continue to transition to be that way. Obviously, we're moving towards a much more cookieless world, and people, like we've said, are much more guarded over their data privacy. The only thing, that's only going to continue going. And it's obviously, we've seen how third-party audiences have become a little bit less impactful. The most powerful thing that we can be doing now is to start to make sure that we're building our own first-party audiences, having your own data sets, making sure that you're capturing information on site, getting them really nicely granulated, allowing you to, as part of your advertising strategy, to deliver that bespoke messaging to users that are at different points of their journey with you as a brand. And it should already be an important consideration within businesses, but it's more important now than ever that we align these with our paid media strategies to make sure that we're able to granularly target users and make sure we're serving the most relevant and impactful ads at the correct stage of the consideration for a user.